Viewers' discretion is advised. What's up, docs? JC Thornton here, and welcome to another episode of JC Talks. For this video discussion, I'm going to be talking about the upcoming animated film Space Jam: A New Legacy. This will contain details about the movie, and I'll be sharing my overall thoughts about the film. This is a very exciting topic I've been wanting to talk about, since the first Space Jam is one of my biggest guilty pleasures in animated films, because I enjoyed it when I was a kid. So without any further ado, let's slam and head into the jam! This sequel is titled Space Jam: A New Legacy. Well, some call it Space Jam 2. And it's an animated live-action hybrid film that consists of LeBron James and the Looney Tunes characters trying to rescue LeBron's son from a universe filled with iconic Warner Bros. Characters, according to plan by Al G, who's the film's main antagonist played by Don Cheadle. Like the first Space Jam, they must battle their way through a big basketball game of monsters, but for this case in general, they're fighting against super versions of the NBA and the WNBA biggest icons, not the Monstars, sadly. Space Jam 2 was in development far back in 1997, a year after the release of the first Space Jam. The planned storyline for that film was to have a new showdown between Michael Jordan and the Looney Tunes and a villain named Berserko. The Space Jam director Joe Pytka and the supervising animators Tony Cervone and Spike Brandt were signed to return to work on the project, but the sequel was eventually scrapped due to Jordan's refusal to return. However, the development of the sequel would later be revisited, but Warner Bros. Wanted to go at a different direction, with such ideas would involve a golf movie with Tiger Woods, a NASCAR racing movie with Jeff Gordon, and even a spy film with Jackie Chan, which the sequel would later be titled Spy Jam. Nevertheless, the sequel would be scrapped again in favor of Looney Tunes Back in Action. Further plans of the sequel were still happening, such as a skate film with Tony Hawk, but it was scrapped again. This was ultimately due to the poor box office performance Back in Action received during its theatrical run, despite the film being critically improved compared to the first Space Jam. So, the sequel was never heard from again. That's until the development of the sequel yet again got resurrected around 2014 that Warner Bros. Is developing a sequel to Space Jam with LeBron James and Bugs Bunny being the lead stars. Fast and Furious director Justin Lin was signed to work on the film, but left the project with Terrence Nance to serve as the replacement to work on the film. Space Jam 2 officially began development around 2019. Finally, the sequel is officially going somewhere after over 2 decades of being in development hell. Now, many of you have the belief that Space Jam: A New Legacy is a legit sequel, right? Well, not exactly, but instead, the so-called sequel will be more of a soft reboot, which means that it's set in the same universe as the first film, but would have nothing to do with the original timeline or settings. So, it'll be a whole new timeline, new characters, new personalities, etc., but the environment of the first Space Jam will remain the same as it was. During production though, Nance left the project because he's felt that the crew members had a different take on the creative vision of the film. So, he was later replaced by Undercover Brother director Malcolm D. Lee, who served as the director for the remainder of the film. Production officially wrapped around September of 2019, and the film is scheduled to be released on July 16, 2021, theatrically and on HBO Max. The animation will be done by a variety of companies and animators. Visual effects company ILM will produce the visual effects of the movie, the first time they've done so with the Looney Tunes characters since Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Notable animators who are working on the film are Spike Brandt. Just Spike Brandt, who've previously worked on the first Space Jam, as well as most animation work of the recent Tom and Jerry and Scooby-Doo films. Spike was also notable for developing 2 Looney Tunes series such as Duck Dodgers and The Looney Tunes Show. 2 animation veterans Tony Bancroft, who's known for animating on The Lion King and Mulan, and Dan Haskett, who's worked with the Looney Tunes since the late 1970s, is working on the film too. To put the icing on the cake for the animation, Ole Loken, who's known for the wonderfully animated film Claws, is also animating on the film. Now, this just sounds like an animation supergroup right here. And I'm very optimistic with how beautifully animated this film will be, especially with blending it into the real world like Roger Rabbit, which is also one of my all-time favorite animated films. Well, we'll just see how it turns out once we see the trailer. leaks of Space Jam 2 were beginning to surface around early 2020. Around March, on-set photos were leaked online, showcasing a wrap-up party which features most of the iconic Warner Bros. Characters, such as The Mask, Pennywise, the Joker, Voldemort, and even the Wicked Witch of the West. Now, that's just getting even more insane right here. Some I find a little questionable, but when you get the Mask involved in a crossover between him and the Looney Tunes, now that would be very interesting to see. Because the Mask has similar zany characteristics like the Looney Tune characters. It's something I can definitely see the Looney Tunes interact with. More details about the film would later surface when a month later, LeBron James revealed the official logo of the movie via Instagram, which is officially titled, well, you can see it for yourself, Space Jam: A New Legacy. Around September, a supposed leak of certain details of Space Jam 2 surfaced on the image board website 4chan, where an anonymous user claiming to be a crew member of the movie tells such details include that the plot is about the Looney Tunes being fired from their job due to the unpopularity of cartoons, and they seek LeBron to help them fight off the Warner Bros. Villains such as the Joker, the Mask, Pennywise, etc., and Don Cheadle would play the head of WB. The Animaniacs would also make an appearance at some point, and Lala Bunny would be getting a redesign. Unsurprisingly, because of this politically correct world. My condolences, furry fandom! Although, most of those claims would later be debunked upon further leaks from the studio and crew members. Lastly, in October, the actual plot of the movie surfaced online by a test screening email by writer Ben Meckler. Most recently, a first look image of Space Jam 2 featuring Bugs Bunny in action was leaked during the Warner Media's virtual CCXP panel, confirming once again that the Looney Tunes in this movie will stay true to the 96 appearances. As I already mentioned, LeBron James will obviously be the lead star, and Don Cheadle will be the film's antagonist. Now, how about the voice cast? Who'll be Bugs Bunny? Who'll be Daffy Duck? Who'll be Lola Bunny? Well, as reported, Eric Bauza, who's notable for voicing Bugs in Looney Tunes cartoons, will be voicing Bugs Bunny and Daffy in the movie, as well as other characters such as Tweety, Pepe Le Pew, and of course Marvin the Martian. Now that's very impressive. I do recommend checking out Eric's take on some of the characters in the Looney Tunes cartoons when you have the time, especially his take on Daffy Duck. They're very entertaining and pays great homage to the original cartoons. Jeff Bergman, who's known for being one of the earliest replacement of the voice of Bugs Bunny since the passing of Mel Blanc, and more recently in the Looney Tunes show and Wabbit, now called New Looney Tunes, will be voicing Sylvester and Foghorn Leghorn. Kath Soucie, who's known for voicing Fifi LaFume in Tiny Toons, as well as being the original voice of Lola Bunny, is voicing Lola Bunny once again, since New Looney Tunes. Sorry Kristen Wiig, not this time. Now these other ones are rumored to voice these characters, and if I'm wrong and these are confirmed, yeah, please let me know in the comments section. Bob Bergen will be voicing Porky Pig, and Fred Tatasciore will be voicing Yosemite Sam. Now the voice cast sounds like a good lineup. I especially look forward to Eric's performance in the film, as well as Kat's take to flesh out Lola more again. Now, speaking of which, there's an important thing I'd like to talk about. Okay, now this is a fun one. Many of you people know that the predecessor of Space Jam 2 is the debut of Lola Bunny, which she later grew into one of my favorite Looney Tune characters. As depicted in the first Space Jam, she served as the typical love interest for Bugs Bunny, who's sweet, cool, great at basketball, and got the looks. She would later make appearances in some direct-to-video films, web cartoons, video games, comics, and most recently, the Looney Tunes show and New Looney Tunes, where her character was starting to become more developed as more appearances go by. However, there's been some debates on which version should appear in a sequel. And, well, unsurprisingly, there's been people saying that they should use the Looney Tunes show version because, you know, she's funny, has a zany personality to feel like a Looney Tune and enjoyable to watch, and if they use that version for Space Jam 2, that'll make the movie even better! However, based on recent leaks, the design of Lola for Space Jam 2 surfaced, featuring a look that is somewhat identical to her original Space Jam appearance, but with some differences added to it to make her appear more like a toon and less sexualized. Her personality has yet to be shown, and I hope to see an example of it once the trailer hits. I know a lot probably did not like it, or didn't like it because she's nothing like the Looney Tunes show Lola, but I gotta be honest, I really love the design they've used here. For this situation, I feel it really works. Personally, as much as I can agree that the Looney Tunes show Lola is enjoyable at least for her own way with a likable personality and everything, even one of my favorite versions in terms of personality, I heavily opposed that idea to use the Looney Tunes show version for Space Jam 2, and I'll be happy to share a point with you. But before I get to that though, just a little disclaimer here. This is not a video where I say which version of Lala Bunny is the best, as I stand to my preference that I like all versions of Lala Bunny for what they are no matter what. And despite what people say, they're all not perfect because they all even have their own disadvantages, including the Looney Tunes show version. The Looney Tunes show Lola may be one of the best characters in the Looney Tunes show because of the clever jokes, some traits that resemble of a Looney Tune at that. She's depicted as being an obsessive lover for Bugs during the first season, but as further episodes went by, you get to see her become more bubbly and friendly. Although, some problems with that version is she can be a little too talkative, absent-minded, and somewhat annoying. But her character worked for the story of the Looney Tunes show, but the question is, since she was great in the Looney Tunes show, would it mean that if they use that version in other Looney Tunes shows, movies, or reboots, it'll make everything better? Well, that's kind of the problem. The main point of Space Jam is it has nothing to do with the Looney Tunes show or serve any connections with it either way, shape, or form. It has its own environment and style. Space Jam is Space Jam, the Looney Tunes show is the Looney Tunes show. Not only that, but getting the Looney Tunes show Lola for Space Jam 2 or even other Looney Tunes productions outside of the Looney Tunes show, unfortunately is not the answer to make an entire movie or series automatically better. There's actually a lot more to it than just the Looney Tunes show you'd have to worry about. And that's like the directing, the writing, the production values, the animation style, it goes on. If any of those aren't handled properly, the Looney Tunes show Lola could be at risk of being out of character, poorly written, and even worse, unlikable in that show or movie, and you don't want that to happen at all. There are rules and restrictions each show has to follow. Using the Looney Tunes show Lola for Space Jam 2 is not the only problem in this scenario, but the same thing goes with the other versions of Lala Bunny in different shows as well. Each reboot or revival the Looney Tunes have been in always gets a change in appearance and personality for it to fit well with the setting of the show. It happens all the time. Example is Lola in New Looney Tunes. She even had to go through some changes in terms of personality and appearance in order for her to blend well in the environment of the show. And as you can see, she's not entirely like the Looney Tunes show version, but she's depicted as a clever trickster kind of like Bugs, but has similar characteristics of the Space Jam and the Looney Tunes show versions combined. She's also bubblier and more spontaneous at times. Personally, I love those new Looney Tunes shorts because not only you get to see the character become even more clever and zany, but they even got Kath Soucie to flesh out her character even more. I mean, granted it's not perfect, but it's, at least in my opinion, it's Kath's huge improvement towards her take on Lala Bunny compared to her previous attempts. But to get to the point here though, even though the new Looney Tunes version is also enjoyable, do you ever see this version working in a Space Jam movie or anywhere else? Exactly. No, it wouldn't. Not by a long shot. Because Space Jam has nothing to do with the setting of new Looney Tunes either. Same goes with the other shows that could potentially include Lola in, like Looney Tunes cartoons or the upcoming Tiny Toons reboot. Even if they do decide to include Lola in that show, Lola's character could maybe remain the same, but would have to get her appearance and personality changed no matter what in order to fit with the format and the environment of the show. Therefore, the Looney Tunes show Lola wouldn't work in Looney Tunes cartoons either because, well, the Looney Tunes show Lola isn't made for that show. Just the Looney Tunes show, whether you like it or not. As someone who's also loved the Looney Tunes show Lola, there were bizarre attempts at bringing back the Looney Tunes show version into generic Looney Tunes media, such as Looney Tunes Rabbit's Run and Looney Tunes World of Mayhem. To be fair though, I do appreciate the effort on trying to make the Looney Tunes show Lola translate in other universe, but overall, the only way you can make the Looney Tunes show Lola work in other shows or reboots is, well, this. This is the most effective, if not the only way of getting the Looney Tunes show Lola back and to make her work properly. And the Lola Bunny that would work best in Space Jam: A New Legacy would be, you may not like it, but you guessed it. The Space Jam version of Lola Bunny is the best way to go for this movie because she's meant for that role to translate in the setting of the movie. And the Looney Tunes show Lola just would not work for this movie because you know, that version is not meant for Space Jam. No offense towards, you know, the Looney Tunes show version of Lola, but this is just how it works. Oh my goodness, now I have a headache. I'll be right back. Oh my god, I'm sorry, I had to take an Advil after talking about Lala Bunny for too much. It makes me feel like my head was about to blow into smithereens. I have to be honest though, that bit was saved until the last since it's a big discussion. Now I feel better. Now, overall, I really feel this film has potential of being good, as I'm hearing all these talented animators and actors being involved, so I'm optimistic how everything turns out, and especially with the animation, because, once again, Space Jam is one of my biggest guilty pleasures today because of childhood reasons, and the big reason I'd like to go see this movie is because of nostalgic memories of the first Space Jam, and I just hope for the best that the movie will be energetic and great. Even if it don't go well as planned, at least I can say that it was worth a try, especially like after 20 years since the release of the first film. Now, the first Space Jam without my nostalgia glasses on was overall, it's okay at best. There were downs and things to improve upon, I'll give it that, but I still appreciate it because it has impacted me during childhood since it was one of the movies I grew up watching. It'll also be awesome to see how the animation would be like in the movie too, because, you know, just by looking at the artwork, they all seem pretty fluid. It'll also be exciting to see how the other characters play a role in this movie too, you know, especially the mask. Now, for Lola, here I go talking about this again, despite that her appearance will mostly be basing off the Space Jam version, while some body proportions have toned down a notch, for obvious reasons. I really feel that version deserves a second chance and has potential of being great, if not better than how she was in the first film, even for Kath Soucie. I say this because there was a rumor circulating around that Lola will play a lead role in the sequel where she serves as the leader of the Toon Squad, which is all sounding pretty good if it's true, because at that point we get to see Lola more often and more time for her to develop her character. Now, some of you think that Space Jam Lola would be bad because, you know, she barely had a personality in the first movie like most people claim. And, of course, they should go with the Looney Tunes show version instead because people say that, you know, she's everything imaginable, she has a personality, she's clever, she's like a Looney Tune, I mean, everything imaginable, but that's not entirely the point. Believe it or not, Space Jam Lola can have a personality too. The reason for people to say that she didn't have much character in the first film is because she was severely underused in the movie that we barely got to see her character develop enough, and is only served as a love interest for Bugs, who's good at basketball, and that's about it. But the point is, if we just keep giving her the chance to appear more often in the sequel and other shows connected to the 90s universe, she'll eventually gain a character. A much better one than just, don't ever call me doll. On the bright side, Kath Soucie has improved her take on Lola as time went by, especially for her role in New Looney Tunes. And I even have great hopes that she'll do well, if not better as Lola in this movie. Because getting to know her, she's got plenty of experience, she's a wonderful voice actress, and I hope for the best for her and even the rest of the voiceover crew with their characters in this movie. For this movie, I'm excited to see how this turns out. And when it comes out, I'll go and slam, and welcome back to the jam. So, that's all I have for this episode of JC Talks. Thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, and feel free to let me know how you guys feel about Space Jam: A New Legacy. Are you excited about it, or would you pass on this? Anything else you'd like to share your thoughts on the movie, just let me know in the comments. Peace out, fly like an eagle, and good night!